Hello, world. My next guest is a dynamic leader at the intersection of marketing data and technology with an extremely rare ability to fuse business acumen, analytical rigor, and change leadership into results that actually move the needle. As many who've worked with him will tell you, he just gets it. It being how to harness technology and data, not just theoretically, but meaningfully and pragmatically to impact real business outcomes. Please join me in welcoming Shaun Ma, VP of Digital Customer Engagement, to the show. Shaun, are you ready to get radically transparent with me?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the intro and thanks for the invite. Yes, definitely happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So, listen, we're going to jump into all things marketing, all things AI, all things customer engagement. Before we hop in, I've got to ask you this famous question. What is keeping you up at night professionally in the era of AI today, Shaun?
That's a big question. Okay, well, there's a few things. I'll break it down like this. Actually, AI, of course, is a disruptor. It's doing a lot of good things. Honestly, based on where we're at, I don't think organizations are ready for it yet, right? If you look at classically how a company is built, the structure of roles, responsibilities of people, the duties that come out of new capability are simply not falling on any key person's responsibility yet. So it's not structured to support it. Another thing too is from an AI perspective, and when I say AI in this use case, I'm referring to LLMs.
Mhm.
What most people don't talk about is when AI models update themselves. So, for example, GPT-3 going to 4, for example, right? To use an old example. Um, Most of your automated workflows that you built can break because how AI works is it doesn't actually know the answer. It generates, it makes it up in a way, right? I'm really breaking it down simply, but it's based on probability. It's based on statistically what joins the best from a language perspective. And so, of course, when the backend updates, a lot of the outputs can change. So if you're expecting a repeat output, it can be completely different. And it's known to break already.
Never
So,
a dull moment in the era of AI, is there, Shaun?
exactly. Exactly.
So listen, I'm right there with you around kind of having my eyes wide open through the night, thinking through where organizations are headed when it comes to AI. I've
Yeah.
got to ask, how are you seeing B2B organizations using AI today to create that competitive advantage or competitive edge, if you will, in customer engagement? I know this is your forte.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. I'm going to break that down in two scenarios. One is addressing your question directly from an organization perspective, and another one more from an individual perspective as a contributor to an organization, what can be done to harness it, right? So first of all, B2B organizations creating a competitive edge. If you look at what AI is doing in the customer experience standpoint, I would say um, three primary things come to mind. One is agentic experiences. So let me describe that, right? Classically, let's say I'm a B2B buyer. I'm going to go to a website. I'm going to go to a typical B2B site. First of all, the user experience on common B2B sites are not that great. It's hard to navigate. And usually the product portfolio is huge. So I or a team of eyes have to browse the site to figure out what I want and piece it together. Yeah. Um, and usually a marketing function helps enable that. Cool. Well, agentic is I can now go, and if a website is well done, there's going to be a chat agent, not a chat bot, a chat agent. I can talk to the agent, introduce myself, what my role is, what my objective is, and the things I'm looking at, and may even comment on here's the things that I found maybe from a competitor. What do you have? I want to do competitive analysis.
Mhm.
An agent on this said site can serve up specific stuff to that brand and give it to me, right? Even better if the agent stores memory. So if I return in 30 days, it's going to be like, oh, it's you. Like we talked about this. Let's continue the conversation, right? So all this can refine UVP and all this stuff. Um, and in fact, you can also use it as an organization to mine how customers are doing research to you to better understand your customer industry verticals, problems, stuff like that. So that's part one. But part two that feeds into this is I'll talk about search actually, right? SEO, SEM, classically a topic, right? Um, what's not talked about a lot today is very recently, I think about a month ago, Google changed the search result rules. Let's call it that. It used to be that when you type something, the first page of results contains 100 results. And for everybody to know, LLMs actually leverage web search for a lot of the answers. Yeah. So when now Google limits the first page results from 100 to 10, it overnight made AI dumber because AI to save on bandwidth, electricity, blah, blah, blah. It primarily only uses the first page of results because it's the most relevant anyway. So now you went from 100 to 10. That means as a company, you also went from 100 to 10. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is the customer behavior that's changing is the customer, instead of using Google search, is using AI to converse and figure out what they want, especially if it's a complex buy. Why would you not? Right? So how do you optimize to ensure that your brand is front and center for an AI to suggest? So there's this new term being floated around called GEO. So it's generative engine optimization. And there are actually vendors out there in the space today that has established a feedback loop with like your ChatGPTs, your Geminis, your whatever's of the world to kind of feed that in and optimize. So you still have to manage search, and now you have this new thing. Okay. And then, sorry, this is a really long answer. I will also talk about scaling personalized experiences. Okay. Like, let's use the classic example that everybody likes to use. Amazon, they've done this forever. But to make this next level, rather than just suggest product on a page, what if you make it cross-channel? So what if I know you bought a product, maybe your product will be dead in 2 years. 2 years time, before 2 years time, I'm going to reach out to you and say like, hey, here's the new version. I'm going to suggest, and maybe even base it on your utilization, right? So I know the serviceability of what you have versus the viability of what I can give you next. Stuff like this. So that's from an organization perspective. Um, from an individual perspective, my observation is most people looking to learn AI or even using AI today, now mind you, I'm saying this with a marketing lens, is stuck in 2024. And it sounds funny to say because that's only a year ago, but unfortunately, you're super outdated if you're stuck in 2024. I'll give you an example. Um, if someone uses an AI and asks a question like, I don't know, I am looking for a certain product, like give me some answers, like give me one related to this. That's a very basic way to use AI. You can do that. You do not use it like a search engine. You have to provide context. You have to say, ideally, this is who I am. This is my role. This is my objective. You're going to frame up the context. You're going to say, this is what you're going to look for. And you're also going to say, here are my constraints. AI will generate a response for you. After you generate the response, an individual should be like, give me your sources. Give me one line summary for each source. Give me the actual link so I can validate to see if it's good. Because the other problem I would say keeps me up at night is people blindly follow AI. It's not a religion, right? It can be wrong. It is just, in a way, math behind the scenes. And it's probability math, actually. So you got to make sure it's right. So there's all this stuff at play that really come together.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think AI literacy is a huge one. I also
Yeah,
think, what you're saying as well, right? We don't want to get stuck in 2024 with how we use AI, but as we open with, right, with one of the things keeping us up at night is AI is moving so quickly. So how do we keep up at the speed in which it's moving to be
it's
able to
true.
do our jobs effectively? Which brings me to another question around one of my favorite conversations, which is like the MarTech stack, right? So we
Yeah.
mentioned, right, like all of these cool things that you're able to do with AI and different workflows to be able to guide the buyer, right, down the buyer journey and down the
Mhm.
funnel. But when I start thinking about a marketing tech stack today, right? Every tool today has AI. I mean, right? Like it's like every tool. So how what does it truly mean in the era of AI to really
Yeah.
have a lean data tech stack? And what does that look like? How do you vet vendors? How do you like what are we even creating today?
Okay, a lot of stuff to unpack there. I will address it like this. You're right. AI is everywhere. It's very quickly becoming a fragmented space. This is very true. And of course, you can have your in-house teams that can build your own AI functions for specific scenarios, etc. Right? All of these are options. So one is, I mean, I think anybody shopping for AI today will recognize that the AI landscape is centralizing around its own organizations, meaning like OpenAI is going to have its own stack, Google is going to have its own stack, etc. You one, of course, you got to select the stack that makes the most sense for you, price model wise, and also based on what you already have invested enterprise wide. Yeah. But secondarily, you have to benchmark. It's insane if you benchmark, again, I'm using LLMs here, like Copilot versus Gemini versus Claude for certain tasks, you will see they all excel at something very different.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the examples I would give is like project management, business context, that kind of thing, Claude. Actually, if you want to do some statistical modeling, like machine learning type stuff, Gemini looks very good. You know, Copilot for some other things, etc. So you gotta look at it from that angle. So benchmark is number one. Price model. Let me talk about that. For those who do not know, um, for the most part, if you buy agents or agentic functions that are out of the box offered from these organizations, usually the cost will be okay. When I say okay, I mean cost outweighs the manpower that you're replacing
Mm-hmm.
or you're driving efficiency in. If you are building a lot of custom agents for complex tasks enterprise-wide, actually the cost scales to a point where it costs more than running teams. Okay, so that's a big problem that has to be looked at. And finally, I would say there is an AI readiness. Forget the people level because that's complex. I'll put that aside from now. But there's an AI readiness from a data perspective. Is your data clean? Is it reliable? Because it's garbage in, garbage out. Have you stress tested it, to make sure it works? And so I would say to answer your question directly with all those things that from a data stack perspective is of course you'll need ERP, but everybody who has ERP probably has many, and the data situation is a mess. Clean that. CRM, same thing. Clean that, right? You're going to need, from a marketing perspective, probably marketing automation platform. You're probably going to have a CDP of some sort. You're probably going to have web analytics. You're probably going to have a data lake, and make sure your data lake has all of the data sources that you want to drive from a business scenario perspective, some sort of output that's aligned to the efficiency and revenue targets that you want to drive with AI, right? But from a stack perspective, I think like those are the most fundamental ingredients from a B2B perspective. There's going to be more, but those would be your basics.
Yeah, I would tend to agree there. And you mentioned the hidden cost of automating. I want to tap into that for a moment because that's something that I haven't quite wrapped my head around yet, right? Because the conversations many marketing circles are having and joking, but also slightly fearful, right? Is AI going to take my job and am I going to be automated? Is what I'm going to be doing automated enough? But you talk about these hidden costs. Can you kind of dive into like what are those hidden costs of automating your workforce with AI agents? Can we dive into that a little bit
Yeah,
more?
I can break into that and the two competing kind of thought ideas about
Yeah.
that. But so the price scaling, for the most part, the easiest way to state it is if we're talking about agents, it's charged based on transaction. More specifically, it's charged by token, what they call a token. And a token could be a word, it could be a string of words, a token could be a request. And depending on how complex your request is, it could be a sum of tokens.
Mhm.
Okay. So if it's something unique every time and you're running this process on a very regular basis, it can cost a lot of tokens, and therefore the monetary amount is very high. So the question actually to consider is, again, if AI is being brought in to improve quality of life for internal workers, to drive efficiency for a time benefit, then what has to be looked at is what you need that requires 24/7 rigor because the benefit of AI, it's the same performance output regardless of hour, right? And therefore it has crazy efficiency. So where are the areas you can apply this to? The answer most likely is these are the more lower level simple tasks that people don't want to do anyways. And because people don't want to do it anyways, they're probably going to make mistakes. Start there. Yeah. And then because you at the end of the day need to adopt AI and skill it within your infrastructure and processes. So you got to start here. And if you start here, I would believe that the AI pricing model and technology and the costs would come down by the time you're ready for everything else,
Interesting.
right? And by the way, throughout this whole conversation, I'm only talking about Western AI, right? We saw DeepSeek that really shook the market, because it didn't need such heavy infrastructure to run. If we're talking about something like that, it's a completely different story.
Yeah, we'll leave that for another episode. So listen, I've got to ask. I want to be radically transparent here, and let's have a little bit of fun. Talking about AI tools. When was the last time an AI tool that you implemented broke your system, and what did you learn from it? Has it ever happened?
Um, okay, so earlier on, I talked about how if you're running a lot of automation off AI tools, it could break when it updates.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I haven't experienced that, but I know organizations and developers who've done this, not done this, experienced it. Okay, let's not blame the developers, right? Have experienced it.
Careful now.
Um, but I would say I'm not going to name any vendors. As you said, a lot of marketing technology gets bundled with AI, and
Yeah.
and like everybody else, my organization is trialing this. And there are tools out there that would look at when is the best time to drop a piece of communication to a person. And this would be combined with what is the best communication channel based on how they interact and patterns and trends. And this scales at the individual level, at the regional level, at the account level, at the industry level. Like it can do all these great things because it has the data set. So we tried this, and I would say we tried it for the past 3 to 6 months, and we've measured it against business as usual. And what's funny is, despite the promise of this thing, the results are statistically insignificant. Now, thankfully, it's an out-of-the-box function, so it doesn't take a lot of effort to deploy, but it didn't work. So that's what I mean by like, you have to benchmark and test and see all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we've all seen AI hallucinations, and that would be the scariest part if it's driving a lot of very serious workflows. Um, and hallucinations can get really bad. Like, let me describe that. So a hallucination is basically an LLM kind of stumbling upon itself. The logic kind of loops itself, or it leads it to a place where the answer it gives you is completely irrelevant. And some people have documented this and see it as spooky because it shows like AI self-awareness or whatever, but that's actually not what's happening behind the scenes. Um, and what's my point in this? It could happen, and you have to go around it. So the thing that I would say maybe even dev teams today are not the most mature yet because it's a new thing. It's how do you build systemic safeguards and workarounds for stuff like this so that when a hallucination occurs, we can kind of like calm it down, bring it back, recenter it, redrive the context and push the desired output. So there's these checks and safeguards today and like look, this is going to drive a lot of, as I said, new job duties, new responsibilities, new ways to measure. Like what I just said right now should be a new way to measure. Who today has a KPI that measures AI hallucinations and impacts on workflows? Probably no one.
Not on our
Yeah.
scorecard.
But
Ask
there's a
about it.
lot of stuff like this that needs to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, so speaking about KPIs, right? I feel like let's hop into SEO for a moment because, right,
Okay.
speaking about KPIs, I feel on every marketing scorecard today is still we're still measuring and still looking at the amount of traffic that we're
Mm,
bringing to our website and the power of SEO. And they still remain that these metrics still remain, I would say, table stakes. But
yeah.
we can argue, right, that we should be looking at other things. And so I want to ask, want to challenge you, what do you think that new set of metrics, you mentioned hallucination, which I think is interesting, but what
Yeah.
are other metrics or a new set of metrics that you think, or in your opinion, really indicates real digital engagement, number one? And then
Yeah.
thinking through that, right, are LLMs even SEOable? I mean, is that,
Yeah.
is it possible?
Okay. Cool. Another very loaded question. My cat's saying hi, sorry. So I'll start with the easy one. Are LLMs SEOable? I mean, answer is yes. I talked about GEO. As a company, you're gonna invest in yet another vendor relationship to drive GEO so that the LLMs are SEOable. Cool. Here's the problem, and this is a real statistic. It's a little bit dated now, so the numbers are probably different, but for the most part, there was B2B companies and B2C actually that came under a study. I don't know how many, but this study basically showed that across these global brands, there was a web traffic drop off of between 15 to 20% globally. Um, And it was because of LLMs, because people just doing their shopping through other means. So just to answer your question, first of all, the classic business metrics or the classic marketing metrics of engagement successes are still very relevant because I'll put it this way. Is email still relevant in 2025? Like email is super old, right? But from B2B perspective, the statistic still remains to be that email is the most commonly trafficked form of communication and used communication by buyers and sellers both. Cool. So that means your website still will probably be that. Okay. But yes, there's another area where people are going to engage, and how people engage on it is a little bit of a black hole. You won't know, right? And so it's impossible today to have a KPI on it, but it is something that needs to be figured. It's yet another thing that AI is opening up a gap for.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And so the thing is, tracking marketing attribution by channel, by source, by whatever is still a thing you must do. And in fact, if an organization is struggling with it today, the good news is, hey, you have LLMs, like you can model this better using not fixed models, like not very classic ways, in ways that are more accurate. Great. But again, if someone learns all about you through something that's a little bit of a black box that you're not going to track because it doesn't have your cookie and blah, 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 that is the reality. And that you simply cannot track. You're just going to have to infer that.
Yeah.
Maybe from a combination of web traffic drop off or whatever, right? It's just going to be a thing.
A marketer's worst nightmare, right? Not being able to measure. So listen, let me ask you this. Overlooked tactics, right? With marketing, there's so many of them. But what would you say is one of the most overlooked tactics for building trust-based relationships in digital customer engagement?
Trust-based relationships. I mean, especially in the world of AI, it's a good question because trust is a very important thing, and it's a complex topic to even debate. How do you build trust, right? And so the most front and center, I want to make it very human. Okay. Great customer service is a huge trust builder, right? Going beyond what a customer experience can expect. But that doesn't just mean at a buying level. It could be it mean at a brand level. I'm going to an event. I feel seen. I feel recognized. These guys know me. Yeah. I have a relationship with my sales guy at this brand or vendor or whatever. It feels nice, you know. Is the customer support good? Or rather than just an outsourced afterthought? Yeah. Um, I'm thinking. But like those would be the classic things.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. Listen, I think the customer
It doesn't
experience,
change.
customer support, it's huge. And I think in the world like that, even in the world of AI, as you mentioned, right? That's the one constant that good experience, good
It
support.
is. The other piece I'll add in is privacy. How do you handle a customer's private information, especially now that everything is tracked? I
Mhm.
think in the advent of AI, privacy policies are all suddenly outdated. How customers are being informed of how the data is leveraged and the impacts are also out of date. These things need to change. People just need to know. And honestly, because it's all brand new, once it starts to begin established in the community, customers will have a response. They always do.
Mhm.
And we have to respond to that response. And right now it's early days.
Yep, I'm with you. So, with that, what would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions that B2B organizations have when
Mm.
trying to use AI for marketing efficiency?
I think people won't like me for this, and I can answer this pretty clearly, is I think most people in organizations today don't actually understand what AI can and cannot do. Like I do a lot of AI research. I think it sounds like I do. Um, and I have seen plans from many sources where when you look at the plans, it's written by people who clearly have not done benchmarking, have not tested, have not whatever, and it looks like a wish list
Mm.
because it's like, oh, we have AI. I have Hollywood education of what AI does, and I want AI to do A, B, and C. It can't. And this is why the topic of AI is so divisive because there are people who will say, oh, it's not going to replace your job, and others that will say it absolutely will. There's the answer lies somewhere in between, right? And that requires an understanding of the context. So, that is the misconception I have there is what AI can actually do.
Mm-hmm.
and what it takes to get to the place where to understand it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, that's part one. Part two is we talked about it a few times already, is the issue of cost. There's a look like because look, there's almost like AI propaganda. Oh, Microsoft said, um, don't come to me for a hire until you can prove that AI cannot do this job and a human must do this job. This is a real policy that they implemented. Or Meta saying, oh, we're cleaning house because we're automating a lot of jobs. Cool, cool, cool. All these things, right? But the fact of the matter is, these are the very vendors that's giving you the service. Maybe they can afford to do that. If you are not the vendor who develops the service and has this cost benefit thing, it's going to be really expensive to do what they did. So don't dream about it because the pricing world hasn't gone to that state, very simply,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and we talked about the data privacy issue, which is going to be an issue. And good and clean data is still necessary, right? So in summary, know what AI can do, good and clean data, cost efficiency, like understand that really before like buying into the whole thing. I would say those are the things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ties right in where I was going to ask you about future-proofing your organization, but I think you just nailed it with those points. Is there any, I mean, really, like when you think through future-proofing an org today, is there anything you would add to that list?
Yeah, I would say now, and I would make this a non-AI question. I would
Let's
make
do
this
it.
a modern digital marketing question based on current customer experience and expected customer experiences. Look at an organization and understand, have we mapped out by role all of the responsibilities we need to drive a good expected future customer experience? And the answer for most B2B organizations is no. You have too many classically trained marketers. You have too many silos that's stuck in a very antiquated way based on how an organization is built. All of that needs to be broken down. And I know I'm being very idealistic, but to future-proof an organization, you have to break it down and ideally start from zero. So I'll give some examples.
Yeah.
You live in a B2B marketing organization. Do you have a team that's focused on account intelligence? Like, so to understand the accounts of what the buyer intent is, who are the buying groups, do we have these relationships? What is the organization map for these relationships? Is sales talking to them? Are we using this information to drive sales engagement? Are we using this information to scale our go-to-market planning to activate on these accounts based on the offers that we have, etc. Okay. Some, not most, some mature organizations have this. Most do not. A lot of the work that I just described is spread across teams who have kind of like volunteered themselves to do that work, but it's not in a job description. There are
Hmm.
no goals, there are no targets, there's no rigor. And so therefore it's done poorly, right? That's when you take a step back as a leader and say, maybe we hit the reset button and structure for this thing. And that's a basic thing. That's not AI at all, right? If
Yeah.
data is everywhere and we can track so much behavior today, harness it. Because most marketing organizations today, I will tell you, likely over 80% of all the data they track, and I'm not like being sarcastic, over 80% of all data they track is probably unutilized.
Mm.
Most people, the most common thing is most people will be like, I have the email address. I want to track everybody I have email addresses for. Easy. Cool. I'm in 1999. Sorry, we're in 2025, right? You can track all of these people who you don't have email addresses for, aggregate those behaviors and figure out the trends. And more than that, of course, we have technology today that can align all of those quote unquote unknown visitors to at least account to regions, to markets, so you can understand and dissect them. Then do you have a data team to do that? If not, then maybe you're not future proof. So there's all these things. It's a long answer, but there's a lot one can do, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And so I think I had once heard a marketing leader say, don't just sit and stew, do. So I think I'll apply that lesson
Yeah,
here, right? We gotta
yeah,
do,
yeah,
we gotta do.
yeah.
So
If you can think about it, you can do it. Yeah,
exactly, exactly.
yeah.
So now that we're thinking about it, I've got to ask Sean, what's one bold prediction that you have for AI and B2B marketing that you think that will come true by the end of next year?
Bold prediction for AI and B2B marketing is my hot take is little real change will happen because of the problems we just talked about. Organizations are not ready, people are not ready. But likely. From a pricing strategy perspective, this market moves so fast that can be ready at that time. And and
There's
and
hope.
and and here's the thing. I would say whichever AI vendor figures that out first and gets the mass adoption is who holds the benefit and who's going to drive the train. Because that's when you're going to get the mass adoption, and that's where you're going to get, let's say, a large mass of users to train and enhance their model to make them better than the competition. Unfortunately, there's the cost of hardware and the lack of power for them to plug into, which is a very big problem today for AI that needs to be solved. So there's an infrastructure, physical infrastructure gap.
Mm.
And so, um, until we crack the code, kind of like China did for DeepSeek, we might be stuck in that. But I would say, assuming these things happen, I think it'll move in that direction.
Well, sounds good. So we'll see you in a year from now, and we'll have a whole new podcast episode about that bold prediction, if it came true or not.
Yeah. That's right.
So
That's
to
right.
close out the show, I'm going to ask my favorite question. Shaun, what is one thing that you can tell us about yourself that we actually can't learn about you from looking at your LinkedIn profile and, dare I say it, asking AI?
Yes, I go to a very unique form of therapy. I race cars. Not illegally anything like that, but like actually, yeah, I'm on an endurance race team. I do like time trials. I also instruct at several racing and driver education organizations, just like as a hobby. It's
Sean,
really
that's
nice.
incredible. Can we catch like where would one go? I mean, YouTube.
I have some YouTube videos, but I'm on Instagram. I'm a
Okay,
full send FF, full send one word FF, two letter Fs.
we'll have
Yeah.
to find you. That's incredible. That's fantastic. And then if anybody's looking to speak about, a little more interesting of a topic, AI, B2B
Hmm.
marketing, customer engagement, where's the best place to connect?
LinkedIn is the best. Shaun Ma on LinkedIn. Shaun with a U.
Fantastic. And I will have to give you a shout out. I've been following you on LinkedIn for quite some time, and you've nailed a lot of things in the last few years when it comes to marketing. So Shaun is definitely a favorite follow. So go ahead and give Shaun a follow on LinkedIn. Um, check him out on Instagram for his race car driving, the need
Yeah.
for speed. And of course, Shaun, we'll see you in a year and we'll see if those bold predictions come true. So thanks for getting radically transparent.
Thanks so much, Jen. Cheers.